All right, there we go. So we are live. Hello,
Perfect.
everyone. Yes. Thank you for tuning in today. I am so excited to have Debbie Pedraza from the Foundation for Orange County Public School here with us today. We're going to get into some conversation, but I just want to allow some time for others to join us before we start talking, get to know Debbie, along with we'll be talking about a few things, group dynamics, along with touching on our theme this month, measurement and evaluation. So please
Mhm.
take a moment and tag your friends into the group. Debbie, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Lasheena. Thanks for having me.
Of
Yeah.
course. Um,
Yeah.
so I'll let you know. We're gonna give it some time before we get started.
Sure. Yep.
If you are catching us on a replay, please go ahead and put hashtag replay in the chat box so that we know that you're here. If you have questions throughout, go ahead and place those questions into the chat box and we'll read them throughout, and I'll read them for Debbie to answer throughout. But you definitely do not want to miss this session. Get your friends in here, all your nonprofit friends, tag them in here for this conversation that we're going to have today. So we will give it a few minutes and then we'll get started. If you're here, go ahead and drop a hello in the chat box. I do see. All right. Hi, Michelle. Yes, go ahead and drop a hello in the chat box so that we know you here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Debbie, if
Yeah.
we can just start out with you kind of introducing yourself and
Sure.
in kind of your experience in the nonprofit arena, and then we could talk a little bit about what you do at the Foundation for Orange County Public School.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lasheena, I have been in the educational fundraising and development world since 1997. So if I'm doing my math right, that's about 25 years at this
Wow.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started out with private schools
Mm-hmm.
and I've always been in education, but I also have worked with a school and open community program that served children and adults with developmental disabilities. That was in Maryland, and then
Mm-hmm.
came home to Florida to work with Orange County Public Schools. And I have been the executive director of the Foundation for Orange County Public Schools now since July of 2016. But I was with the district starting in 2013 and I have always focused on seeking time, talent, and treasure in the
Mm-hmm.
education space with the audiences that we work with. And that has varied from organization to organization, but certainly corporate, foundation, and individual donors are all important. And in education, we have some very connected individual audiences, alumni, parents, employees. Those are all very important audiences for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in the fundraising arena,
Yes.
how much would you say, like, in just the estimate? I know I'm kind of putting putting you on the spot, but how much would
Yeah.
you say is like the highest amount you've raised from an event that you've
The highest
been a part
amount
of?
that I've raised from an
Mhm.
event that I've been part of is $520,000.
Wow.
It was a 50th anniversary gala. And it was funny because we eliminated the auction. I
Hmm.
thought that our longtime volunteers were going to have my head on a platter because they're like, we can't get rid of the auction. Well, we raised about 3 times as much money without the auction. We found a few more high level sponsors and we found a speaker, Tim Shriver came in. This
Hmm.
was with the organization that served kids with developmental disabilities.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we brought him in as a keynote speaker and really did it up nice for the 50th anniversary. So that's the largest from a single event.
Wow.
So, but other kinds of gifts we've done. I've worked on multi-million-dollar grants and have gotten some multi-million-dollar gifts from individuals as well.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing. So what tips would you give like a newer nonprofit? Because we have some organizations that's just starting out, probably 3 years and under, to be able to get to that level. Because of course, starting out, sometimes the quickest thing is like, hey, maybe I'll do a smaller size fundraiser. What kind
Yeah.
of tips would you give these organizations?
So, I think when you first start out, especially when the field is new to you, People don't necessarily know that events are the most cost effective, costly, let me say,
Okay.
least cost effective, most costly in terms of resources to raise money. Now, if you need to raise money and awareness and you have both of those goals, it's a good idea to do that. But as a general rule, in the nonprofit world, if you are doing an event and it's brand new, if you manage to raise $1, if it costs you $1 to raise $1, that's common for a brand new event. You want to get an event down to about 25 cents to raise $1, where it's costing that much. But the thing is, if you do direct mail appeal, if you have audiences you can reach out to, that used to be 6 to 10 cents to raise $1. And now with email and being able to do that, it's lower. It's more like 3 to 5 cents. And personal solicitation, where you're sitting down face to face and you're helping a donor, where it's donor centered, where you're talking about with the impact the donor wants to make, and connecting them with your mission, that costs about 2 to 3 cents to raise $1.
Wow.
So I think people assume you want to do big events and you want to get these big grants. But the thing is, if you find a group of people who believe in your mission and you've got a way for them to invest in making the impact, you actually can raise a lot more from just talking with people one-on-one, doing multi-year pledges and getting you going. And I think it's counterintuitive for a lot of people. They assume, well, let's go have a gala. Let's have a big car wash or a bake sale, something like that, just to get started. But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so what advice would you give an executive director who's just starting out? If they say, hey, we're gonna hold off on the events, we're gonna take your advice and focus on building those relationships. What would you say that should look like for them?
Yeah, the very first step is to take a look at who your most connected audiences are. So you want, ideally from a donor, you want access, belief, and capacity. ABC, easy to remember. Access, so people you have access to, you know how to reach them. They believe in the work that you do, and they have the capacity to give. The thing that's wonderful about individual giving is if you have to give up one of those, because in the real world, sometimes you do, it's capacity that you can get rid of, because capacity changes over time. And if somebody really believes in the work that you're doing and they're willing to make you their top philanthropic priority, then their capacity to give is going to change based on how much they believe in what you are doing. So the first step is really to look at who are your connected audiences, who amongst individuals, who amongst corporations or foundations do you have connections to, and who believe in the mission that you're doing. The other thing I would recommend too is take a little scan around and see is anybody already doing what you're doing? Can you join forces? Can you help them build a better, widget, as it were? You have a way to improve what they're doing, and so you don't have to go it alone. Those are the first two things that I would say if I were going to start a brand new nonprofit.
Love it. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I know today's focus wasn't fundraising so much, but of course, that's where a lot of our questions come in, is fundraising, grant writing. How can, what should we do? Where should we start? And thank you for talking about that. So the ABCs.
Access, belief, capacity.
And capacity. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
And let me break that down just a little bit more, Lasheena, to help people think through. Let's assume we had to get rid of one. Okay. You can only have two. So if you have people who believe in what you do and they have great capacity to give, but you have no access to them, then you just create an uphill slog, right? If you've got people who you have access to and they have great capacity to give, but they don't believe in what you do, you're not going to get anything from them. So that's why, you're kind of thinking through, we live in the real world. Sometimes you only have 2 out of 3. Right. It's got to be 2 out of 3, access and belief.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Awesome. So I see we have Michelle. Okay. Hey, Michelle. And Rajane, thank you for joining us. All right. So let's start talking about group dynamics.
Yes, I'm happy to, and I'll keep it fairly brief. And
Okay.
you can go ahead and share the materials out to.
Okay.
Go ahead and share them out to people afterwards, or if they want
Okay.
them, we don't have to put them up on the screen.
Okay. All right.
Just
Got it.
to make sure we get through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
But basically, group dynamics is something that I definitely use with my team. I use it with the work that I do, understanding how humans just behave and
Mhm.
what their basic needs are. So anytime you're meeting with somebody, working with somebody, there are two things happening at all times. There's the content, the what we're talking about, the topic at hand, but there's this whole process piece. It's all this under the surface, the emotions, any defensiveness somebody's feeling, any goals they have or worries, all that stuff is under the surface. So in the materials you have, it makes it look like content and process are even, but an iceberg is a better analogy. We're only about 10 or 20% of the iceberg is above the surface. That's your content.
Okay.
The process is all under the surface. And when you understand these group dynamics, what happens in groups, people's behavior will tell you what they need. And the goal is to not worry about getting my needs met, but to meet their needs. So very briefly, there are 3 stages of group development, and they're also the 3 basic human needs. First one is inclusion. Inclusion is when a group is brand new. It's all about, do I belong or not? Am I worthy of your attention? Am I significant enough for you to pay attention to me? Am I in or am I out? And all of these things drive people's defensiveness subconsciously. So if I don't feel like I belong, if I don't feel included, I might exclude myself, but I am fearful of being ignored. And I'm going to psychologically fight against being ignored. Because in some cases, being ignored can be deadly even. Think about a newborn. A newborn who is ignored is not even going to survive, right? Second stage, once I know I belong in the group, the next phase is control. Control is about competency. Who is in control of me? Am I seen as competent? Can I do what I'm supposed to do? What's my role within the group? And if I am not seen as competent, the fear is that I would be humiliated. And in a workspace, competency is that big, giant hot button for people, right? You challenge my competency and I'm going to lose it. So it's all about, about how hard is it for me to control my reaction. And then the final stage, so we covered inclusion, I know I belong. We got through control. I know my role. I know I can do it. I trust that people believe in me. The final stage is openness. Openness is now not about the group, but about individual relationships within the group. Are Lasheena and I going to be friends? Does Lasheena like me? Are we going to be close or distant? And if Lasheena doesn't like me, then the fear that I'll be defensive about is about being rejected. So in a work setting, that one doesn't come into play as often. It's mostly going to be inclusion and control. Are you paying attention to my ideas? Do you see me as competent? Understanding those things. And people's behavior will tell you what they need. I'll give you a simple example because I do this with City Year. We do a basic training with the City Year AmeriCorps members. These are wonderful young idealists, 17 to 24 years old, going into schools to help. And it's not unusual for them to have a tutoring session with a student. A student just doesn't show up. Now, these young idealists they could get in their own way by letting defensiveness come to play, thinking, oh, what am I doing wrong? Why doesn't he like me? What is it about me? And I just tell them, it's not you. It can't be. They haven't even met you yet. It's not you. It's the need of that child. The first need is inclusion. And what that child has done is excluded himself. So what do? You use inclusion behavior with that child. Inclusion behaviors are things like eye contact and making them the most significant person in the room. So you go find him, hey, Billy, I'm so excited to work with you this year. I'm sorry we missed our first session. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you can do in helping you build on the strengths I know you have. So what can I do to help make sure that you're able to be there for our next session? For 15 seconds, you make him the most significant person in the room. You fill up that inclusion bucket and off you go. Now, in fairness, some people might need to hear that 18 times. They may have a very big need to feel included. But when you understand these concepts and you have that common language, and you know, if I focus on meeting the needs of my team, if I focus on meeting the needs of my donors, if I put their needs first around paying attention to them, showing them they're competent, showing them that they are likable people, and I meet those needs, I'm going to get my needs met, and they're going to feel great about being a part of our organization. So that's a very short, really fast overview of the concept, and the materials have that model, as well as a little bit of quick inclusion, control, openness. Inclusion is in or out, control is top or bottom, and openness is near or far. It's as simple as that. So
I love, so with group dynamics, it sounds like even this whole process, it can be used for different audiences. You mentioned your donors, your staff, your volunteers, your interns. It sounds like your family. You even talked about the child as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It works. It's right from birth. We all have, when you understand that we all have a need to feel significant, to feel competent, to feel likable or lovable. When you know that and you approach people that way and you find ways to meet their needs, it creates very powerful, trusting relationships quickly. And we need trusting relationships when we're doing nonprofit work. We want our donors to trust that we're here to create that impact they're looking for. It's a key part of everything that we do, and it makes an enormous difference. It can build trust very quickly when you know how to address it and you listen to what people tell you, because active listening is probably the most critical skill in our field. To be able to listen to, what is it that you want to accomplish? What's your objective? You might have gotten really excited about a method that you want to do, and that might not get you to your objective, but let me listen harder to that impact you're really trying to make and connect you to that. Because that's what we want to do, right? Is help people have the impact that they want to make out into the world, especially when it aligns with our goals. Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. So we have a training, and just a friendly reminder for everyone, we have our training next Tuesday where we talk about people, processes, and technology. And just hearing the group dynamic, that aligns very well, because the big thing is, when you bring people into an organization, you have to do these things in order to be able to retain them. Otherwise, you have high turnover, and that training process gets really costly when you have to keep doing that.
Yeah, even what we've come through with the pandemic, where we've had to do so many meetings like this, one of the most powerful inclusion behaviors is eye contact. It's really hard to do over a computer screen. If I want to make you think I'm making eye contact, I gotta look at the, like this, but then I can't see you. Right. So it is challenging, and it matters. So making time for face-to-face is really important in order to connect with people. And think about how bad it feels to stand somewhere, like at the counter of a store, and the clerk behind the counter pretends you don't exist. Won't even make eye contact, the most basic thing. When all they have to do is say, hey, I see you. I'll be right with you. Hang on. Right. All they have to do. Right. Very powerful. So, yep, it's good stuff. I have a strong passion for it, and I'm happy to work with any of the groups that may be listening if they'd like to dig deeper and do some experiential exercises about how this works, because it's just what happens in groups. No matter what, it's going to happen. And can I pay attention to it? And can I question my assumptions that I'm making about other people along the way? Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, I know we have a limited time, but we covered a lot. We covered fundraising, group dynamics. The last thing that I want us to close out the conversation on is this month's theme is measurement and evaluation. Yes. So if you can just talk a little bit based off of your experience on the importance of having, measurement, measurement tools in place along with the evaluation process in order to, sustain and grow your organization. If you could just talk a little bit about that.
I will. Be happy to. There's a great book called "Trying Hard is Not Good Enough" that you can find, Mark Friedman, where the basic idea is, it's not enough for us to do good work. We have to show it made a difference. So if I'm reading to a first grader 30 minutes a week, well, is it making a difference? Is he improving at all?
Mhm.
How will we know? So thinking about right from the beginning, thinking about these as guiding questions. What will success look like for this program? And how will we know? And what can we measure that's going to help us know we got there? So in that case, with the first grader, because we're in education, we're going to look at, it's about vocabulary. The particular program I'm talking about, building vocabulary. So we're going to look at, well, there are assessments that record how the schools already do them. How well did his vocabulary grow? Is he doing that? Does he know more words? Are his reading skills growing? Can we get that data? Is that going to tell us that he's been successful? So thinking ahead of time, and I can tell you in our space, especially working with kids, it's another set of ABCs, to be perfectly honest. It's attendance, it's behavior, and it's coursework. When a program is successful, kids are going to school, they're not getting in trouble, and they're doing well in their classes. So depending on what our program is, what is it we want to measure? How are we going to know that that is working? And then what pieces will tell the story? So yeah, that's the conversation to have first, and make sure, and then make sure you don't confuse the methods that you're using to get things done with the objectives you're trying to meet. The objective is to improve his reading skills and vocabulary. How we're going to do it is sitting down with a book 30 minutes once a week. Is that enough? We're going to have to measure and find out. But bottom line, we need to be able to change those methods around to get to the objective. So many people in organizations get really excited about, oh my gosh, I have this great idea. We should do this. Okay, what's it going to accomplish? What is the objective you're trying to reach? What will success look like in your mind? And then let's talk about how we could measure those pieces. So those are really the guiding questions.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yes, and thank you everyone for tuning in. So Kim, who is in the chat box, said this is good stuff. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes, thank you, Debbie. That was really good information. And I appreciate you coming on. So today we covered everyone. We covered fundraising. We talked about group dynamics, and we closed it out with our measurement and evaluation. So make sure that you're looking within your organization and seeing what is it that you want to accomplish. All the tips that Debbie just gave, make sure that you're implementing that. So that's your homework this week until our next session, is taking a look at your organization and seeing what you can do in order to implement measurement and evaluation, because it's so important to being able to tell your organization's story.
That's right. That's right. And the impact that you're helping create. That's how donors are going to find you and say, yes, that's the impact I want to make happen. So, and then you start with their desire for impact. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Debbie, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So we will see you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.